What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and I don't think there's anyone, who would watch one of my videos or who have been around the channel for any amount of time that would be surprised to hear that I strongly dislike Sarah Silverman. Not necessarily because she's like a bad actress or a bad comedian, but because she's had some terrible political takes. Like, mind-numbingly bad. Remember when she thought construction markers on the ground were the symbols of the bad guys from WW2? Like, she tweeted that unironically. Then went on to, continue. And maybe that's part of her like, shtick is antagonizing people into, consuming her content out of, like, morbid curiosity. But you remember her from Santa Inc., the movie that has a 4% currently on Rotten Tomatoes. Not a single critic reviewed it. Why do you, what I think is really interesting about that, I don't want to, this video isn't necessarily about that, but I do think it's interesting. Isn't it interesting that, a very buzzworthy television show on Netflix or HBO Max that stars or created by her and Seth Rogen, two very big names, not a single critic bothered reviewing it. You know why that is, at least in my opinion, is because it was so terrible. It was so terrible in every possible way that any critic knew, first of all, if they gave it a review, they would probably have to be honest, and it was terrible. So then they would be going against the Rogen and Silverman group. If they gave it a review and were dishonest, they would destroy their credibility because everyone knew it was bad in the first place. It was a lose-lose for any possible critic to review it. You say, why did Sarah Silverman and Seth Rogen make a Christmas show, and why was it so bad? I mean, because the program was meant to incite anger. It was meant to pick on Christians. It was meant to be cringy with their whole, like, I'm going to break the glass ceiling. I'm a feminist elf and Santa's a white male, and that's inherently a bad thing. And it's inherently better if a woman does the job of a man. Why? Because reasons. It was a propagandistic garbage cartoon that pandered exclusively to left-wing nuts. That said, Sarah Silverman does have a long history of antagonistic humor. I mean, this is a woman that, at least on several occasions, did blackface. A woman that dressed up as the bad guy from WW2, even featuring the so-called symbol that she thought were construction marks on a talk show. Sarah Silverman has had several very, very bad takes, but interestingly enough, when you continue to try and poke the hornet's nest, in this case, Christians, at least that's what they think, or that's what I'm gathering from this, people are going to lash out at you. And there was some interesting conversations between her and a preacher that went kind of semi-viral on the internet. Santa Inc. voice actor Sarah Silverman recently declared that she loves the teachings of Jesus. Silverman's declaration came in response to a clip of the new independent fundamentalist Baptist preacher Jonathan Shelley criticizing Silverman for a stand-up comedy routine from 2005, where she said that she would put Jesus on the cross again. In 2005, during Silverman's Jesus is Magic comedy tour, she did a bit claiming that she would crucify him again, as seen in the clip below. Silverman stated, "Everyone blames the Jews for this, and if the Jews try to pass it off on the Romans, I'm one of the few people that believes it was the blacks. I don't care. Good. I hope Jews did do it. I'd do it again. I'll do it again in a second," she added. Now, I've kind of, I run into this spot occasionally with my viewers where I know many of you are, practicing Christians or Catholics or many various religions. I know I have Jewish viewers. But anytime you poke at people's religion, it's generally not going to elicit positive responses. I'm not saying it should be off limits, not by no stretch of the imagination, but it's just, dangerous ground to tread. And you end up with this situation where even I, had several of my viewers kind of lash out at me because I called Andrew Torba kind of a religious zealot who runs Gap. In my opinion, he is. But it was taken as I had several of my viewers come like blast me, like I was saying being religious is inherently bad. That wasn't my point. My point was just that Torba takes it to the nth degree, and I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing for a guy running a social media platform. Many disagreed, and that was okay. I'm willing to hear your side and with respect, and I hope that you're willing to hear mine. But, I think it was the late, great Norm Macdonald that was on The Last Comic Standing that kind of told a guy who was making jokes about Jesus and God that it was really lame and low-hanging fruit. And I get that. It's the same thing as like political jokes. Shelley would be seen criticizing Silverman in a clip shared to Twitter by an atheist activist, Hermet, I don't care. Yesterday, New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist preacher Jonathan Shelley went on a blatantly anti-Semitic rant that involved trashing the Christ-rejecting Jew, Sarah Silverman. This is always really weird territory. I don't ever call people out. I wouldn't call people out by their race or religion. I think that people in general, act under their own independent, people have independent responsibility. In the clip, he says, why would you love the guy that blasphemes Jesus? Why would you worship the guy that says he would do it again? Sarah Silverman, the Jew in Hollywood, in her stupid little joke, whatever you call those things, event. What is it, a conference or stand-up comedy? I don't know what their events are, but she stood up there and was like, I would do it again, and I guarantee she would. It's a little odd. Again, this is the risk you take when you go after people's religions. And maybe, maybe she didn't intend it to be anti-Christian, but, this is a woman that has kind of made a career. Now, obviously, Christmas isn't a necessarily Christian holiday, and it's a pagan holiday, but it is largely adopted by Christians. So, Sarah Silverman does have kind of this history of trying to push buttons of Christianity, which, again, I'm not saying is wrong. I'm not saying she shouldn't do it, but at times you're going to end up with this kind of pushback. Silverman responded to the tweet by saying, it was a special I did in character. I don't believe she was in character. I believe that was her own writing, by the way. I love the teachings of Jesus. Jesus would shake his head right off his neck at this. IMO, 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 IMO. I mean, maybe this isn't the first time the pastors criticized Silverman for a 2005 routine where she said the same thing. Back in 2019, Silverman shared a clip of the same, church is Adam fan saying this is somebody different. I'm not even going to read this stuff. You heard of this comedian, Sarah Silverman. You know who I'm talking about. She brags about it. I do it again. Again, this is Adam Fannin of the Steadfast Baptist Church in Florida, and he's going to get me ended. I don't think that, interestingly enough, in her Jesus is Magic stand-up routine, Silverman explained that she didn't do certain racial jokes because she feared the reaction from certain demographics. After telling a joke about midgets, Silverman wrote, or little people, I don't know what the exact term is. I don't really like little people because that means that they're less. I don't know. Dwarfism? I don't know. Whatever. I'll tell you why we make fun of them. We're not afraid of them. That's why it always boils down to across the word. I had a joke with the word N in it, and I thought it was edgy and so hip, and I was doing it all over town at comedy clubs. I was at this one club doing my show, and I look in the front row and a whole table of black people or African-American people. You know what is half and half, I'm pretty sure. But at this point, I didn't do the joke because she was afraid. Well, I mean, that's sad. If the joke was genuinely funny, you shouldn't worry about it. But it seems like maybe you were worried that your joke was a little racist. Christianity is the one religion that is seemingly totally fine for everyone to meme on. It's a double standard that bothers me. It's not, I'm not a very particularly religious person, but I understand where the outrage comes from. It's just like white male Christians are like the easiest, most acceptable thing to make fun of, and that's not okay. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.